Oh no. What's going on? What's going on here?
Yep.
Ben Shapiro.
Hey, and then you got Cartoon Network.
Ben Shapiro rants about a cartoon with an anti-racist message condemning Cartoon Network for indoctrinating kids with overtly racist garbage. I love this old, it's such an old ass antiquated right-wing reactionary talking point. Calling out racism is actually racist.
Network now pushing anti-racism. Okay, so you've got Robin DiAngelo not just teaching Coca-Cola, but mainstreamed into Cartoon Network. Now, it's one thing to get mad at the Muppets from 1987 for telling a joke that you now consider culturally insensitive 30 years later. It's another thing to get mad at Cartoon Network when Cartoon Network is literally just putting out PSAs mirroring for children, mirroring Robin DiAngelo's talking points on racism and indoctrinating kids into overtly racist garbage. Here's the Cartoon Network pushing what is obviously racism.
Well, I'm not an alien, but it definitely matters to me that I'm black. Yeah, it makes a difference that I'm white. I know the two of us get treated very differently. My experience with anti-black racism is really specific. Other people of color experience other forms of racism too, but you won't see any of that if you
How is
don't
acknowledging your white privilege racist toward white people? I understand that you have to be really careful about how you go about illustrating your acknowledgement of white privilege. If you're just like, yeah, I'm privileged, I'm white, I'm privileged, you have to make sure you do a quick fucking follow-up or put it within the appropriate context so that you are describing how you are uncomfortable with your white privilege as opposed to I don't know, what tends to happen whenever you don't further explain. It just sounds like you're doing like almost a weird flex, you know what I mean? And it has to be within, again, the appropriate context where you are describing how you are not personally comfortable with knowing how your white privilege affects other people, right? It's a balancing act. It's a little it's a delicate situation, right? But at the very least, acknowledging these things in no way, shape, or form is, I think, evidencing racism. Unless, like, we're going to see a hard pivot and somehow Shapiro makes this about how it's racist toward white people. I mean, let's be honest. This could be his approach.
Color. Can we get a rewrite where we appreciate each other without erasing what makes each of us different?
Okay, but it's gonna add a couple hours to the shoot.
I can make it work. Open.
You were rolling just now, weren't you? Can't we just slap some graphics on this and call it a day?
See color, be anti-racist. Shut up, racist children. See color, be anti-racist. So yes, we are all supposed to see each other as people of different colors whose experiences are completely non-understandable. I cannot understand your experience in any way. And because I can't understand your experience, this is the Robin DiAngelo stuff, I have to listen and believe. I can never try to assess whether your opinion on a matter is non-factually or evidentiarily based. Instead, I have to listen and believe because, you see, I see color. So I'm an anti-racist, which means I have to listen and believe whatever you say and presumably accept all of your policy recommendations as well in order to destroy the systems of power. This is being taught to children at Cartoon Network. To children. Yeah, you wonder why people feel like they are under assault? Because they are under assault.
Ben Shapiro is really losing his touch, I think. Because, as you see here, he takes issue with the acknowledgement of color and the acknowledgement of one's race or ethnic background tied to the oppression that they are subjected to, and the long-standing history of this oppression that has placed disproportionate harm to this individual as part of a collective that, oddly enough, has been driven by federal policies, racist, federal, discriminatory policies. So if policies have driven these systems of oppression, it seems as though policy is necessary to undo this burden of oppression that has been disproportionately placed on non-white and marginalized groups. Right? Restorative justice, reparations. If you are going to acknowledge that these plights are tied to one's ethnic and racial background, then you have to acknowledge that policy solutions that are crafted to address these issues, to address these forms of oppression, are absolutely necessary. You don't get to just say, I think that you are using your blackness or your brownness or your indigenousness to try to form or craft or drive policies that ultimately I disagree with. If you're talking about the Green New Deal, there's an element in the Green New Deal that addresses the long-standing housing discrimination, right, that marginalized groups, by and large, have been affected by. And that is something that needs to be addressed in every facet of every policy that has some sort of long-standing historical element of racism or discrimination at large. Otherwise, you are doing a disservice to any to any movement that could go about undoing the harm that has been caused. And it's not just with policy, but I just bring up policy because Shapiro brought up policy. It's good cartoon for Shapiro.
Your experience in any way. And because I can't understand your experience, this is the Robin DiAngelo stuff, I have to listen and believe. I can never try to assess whether your opinion on a matter is non-factually or evidentiarily based. Instead, I have to listen and...
This is the plausible deniability thing. Even though we do have evidence suggesting how institutional racism, interpersonal racism, discrimination towards marginalized group, disabled individuals with disabilities, members of the LGBTQ, they have all experienced disproportionate discrimination by way of policy measures that have either outright neglected them or were crafted to intentionally exclude them in one way or another, physically or otherwise. I get exacerbated at any group that places themselves over another. Well, here's the thing. Whenever we're talking about equitable outcomes, we're talking about restorative justice, this does put a little bit more focus on those groups with long-standing histories of oppression, who have been oppressed, or subjected to oppression. Their needs are elevated. They get a little bit more assistance. And that is what Ben Shapiro is fighting back against, because he's saying you can't necessarily prove to me that you individually have been affected by maybe these issues or whatever. You can't prove it to me. You can't base this on evidence or some sort of what does he say, factually based proof that you yourself have experienced some sort of difference in your life that I haven't. Just because of the color of your skin, you are trying to use the color of your skin to drive a narrative leading to policy recommendations, leading to changes that I don't necessarily believe. And he takes more issue with acknowledging color. And I know that that's one of the things that conservatives and right-wingers love to fight back against. It's that you're trying to make this about color. I don't see color. Remember, like Tommy Laren's like, I don't see color. It's not about color. It's not about color. It is about color. If you want to address these issues that have been going on in this country, you have to address this.
And believe, because you see, I see color. So I'm an anti-racist, which means I have to listen and believe whatever you say, and presumably accept all of your policy recommendations as well, in order to destroy the systems of power. This is being taught to children at Cartoon Network. To children. Yeah, you wonder why people feel like they are under assault? Because they are under assault.
Who was under assault? Sorry. Who was under assault here? The powers that be? The powers that be who have solidified these various forms of oppression by way of policy measures written at the federal level? Those? They're the ones under attack? Happy anniversary to the Daily Wire's racist and ahistorical Columbus Day cartoon that Ben Shapiro claims he didn't know about or approve because he was on vacation, despite the time it takes to make cartoons and it being the only cartoon they ever made. No, I've never seen this before. Holy shit. Holy fucking shit. I feel really uncomfortable seeing that as well. Hi, Apollo Diabolo. I'm here for the pizza leftovers. Hey. I love the silly implication that Europeans taught natives how to grow corn. Yeah. So, indigenous people had existing codified what would be considered constitutions. They had treaties among other indigenous groups. They had And they had rituals, yes. They valued land, yes. They grew their food. They didn't eat one another. They had their own form of civilization that didn't necessarily fit within the confines of Western democratic values. But that doesn't mean that they weren't civilized or they somehow were in need of some sort of major reform or major intervention. The white man saved the indigenous person is so incredibly ahistorical, and just completely offensive. The white man genocided the indigenous people. That's what happened. That's it. It's crazy how still to this day the justifications will be made in defense of the genociders as to why it was necessary, absolutely necessary, to do what was done. It was for the better of the indigenous people. It was for their own good. I tried to make a dumb hominin joke yesterday to lighten the mood, but it came across the wrong way, and instead I contributed to the sourcing of the mood. I just wanted to apologize. Well, thank you, Dino, for apologizing. I'm also incredibly sensitive whenever I'm doing anything YouTube related. I think that it probably can be rather off-putting. So I acknowledge that, and I apologize as well. Let's remember they also totally destroyed a ton of the historical records of many indigenous civilizations after destroying them, giving them free rein to slander them without historical resistance. History tends to be written by the winners? The winners? The winners of what? You mean the oppressors? You mean the colonizers? You mean the imperialists? You mean the terrorizers? The terrorists? They're the ones who write the history. They're the savages. They're not the winners. They're cruel and inhumane and unusual in their quest to obtain ownership of land and overthrow existing traditions and cultures and values of the society that they are uprooting and overthrowing. If genociding an entire civilized society, occupying the land that you think you deserve, is winning, I don't want to be a winner. I want to be a fucking loser. In Australia, the argument of Aboriginal people farming was only recently started here. There's evidence to suggest it happened, but as they worked with and not shaping it like European people, it has not been recognized. I mean, hold on for a second. How do you think the indigenous people of any society survives? I mean, obviously Ben Shapiro is trying to say that people just cannibalize themselves, which is not true. That's a farce. It's completely untrue. I'm sure that God weeps about the things done in his name. Well, if he's out there, I'm sure that he's rather upset. We'll see, though. Oh, I forgot to say I'm live. Fuck. Fauci should be fired. This was written 15 hours ago. Is real. Cancel culture is real. It's the difference between criticizing someone and calling for their firing, silencing, or defunding.